Hello and welcome. I'm Nerdarchist Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd. He's somewhere
Nerdarchist
around here.
dead.
I have to figure out what side you are so I know where to point for the future. For the future. So I believe today we're going to be talking about heroes and heroism and Dungeons and Dragons. Um, that kind of things. Although I am not entirely sure that we are streaming.
Does not appear so on the handy dandy device I see here.
Oh, nope, we're live. Yes!
Oh,
Victory! For whatever reason, I see us live on the page, but the page we're supposed to look at as the controllers of this event where everything's going on, I got static. So,
well, I mean, as long as we're moving,
we are moving.
all's good.
All is good, man. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Well, to dive into the life of Ted, I had a minor crisis for most of the day. Had to go out for a small little errand, no big deal, and like a fool, I keep my keys kind of separated, and one's got my house key on it, one's got the car key on it. Figures no big deal, keys locked in the car. I get back to the car, I drive home, and I can't find my house key. And all day, going through issues. I looked through the car multiple times. The kids looked through the car. I called the place where I was. I drove back. I walked around. Could not find it for the life of me. And literally within the last half hour, I looked out in the car one more time. Finally found the keys. I don't have to pay to replace the locks on our PO box. So yay.
Woo! And so eventually, this is like when you're playing D&D, folks, and the DM is like, so and so, give me an investigation check, right? And they fail it, but then like the rest of the party is like, can I make an investigation check? And like everybody rolls until someone finally passes their investigation check. In this case, it was just Ted rolling over and over and over again, and your kids rolled too.
Yeah, the kids rolled as well. So we did have the party involved.
They're little, so they must have rolled with disadvantage.
The wife was like, "Look, take the 7-year-old. Her hands are tiny. She's go to look under or what have you." I'm like, "They looked. We did the best job we can. The only thing I can assume is that for the 10 minutes I was out of the car, someone decided to get in somehow and take my keys. Only possible option. There's no possible way it fell in between the seats or what have you." Yeah, I'm certain everybody out in the internet really cares about my lost keys, but
I think you gained your background. That was that you're actually a folk hero now, and that is how you gained it. You defeated the lost keys. That was the obstacle you had to overcome. You had to work together with your minions, your gnomes, in order to make this endeavor happen and not replace locks. I didn't have anything nearly as exciting happen today. I just did nerdarchy stuff and went to the gym and yelled at my kids. So
That's summer vacation, so there's pretty much a 90+% chance that I'm going to yell at my kids. So them not being in school, they're not prone to getting along all day.
My daughter stayed home from school today because apparently there wasn't anything going on, right? And at school, and she was like, because they're all half days, and whatever the classes she was going to go for was like lunch and homeroom and something, right? So my wife lets her stay home, and she's supposed to do chores, and like, so I spent like the greater part of my morning slaying that demon, trying to wake up a teenager. Eventually, I just grabbed the squirt bottle and just kept squirting her until she got up. It's like too much. We needed some heroes in our lives today, Ted. We needed some heroes to solve these problems.
So, getting back to the actual subject we have at heroism in D&D, the kind of idea is like realistically, you can choose to be any alignment that you want, but when it comes to planning the game, whether it be session 0 or whatever, as a DM, I look for heroic players. I want my players to be wanting to do great and glorious things. I don't want to have to push people into, when I put out the quest of, hey, can you go rescue this, noble, or go rescue, this farmer? I want them to like, yes, that is something my character would do. I don't want there to be convincing. And so many times you hear, these characters are like, hey, yeah, I want to be evil. I don't want to go rescue that person. And, that makes for more challenging work, in my opinion, on the DM.
Yeah, I feel that too. Or you get the I want to play. They want to play more dark and gritty games, and I just don't like that anymore. Like, I'm like you. I want them. I want them to do heroic things. I want them to save the princess or prince, as the case may be, and defeat evil in the land. And maybe things are a little black and white with an occasional shade of gray mixed in there, for the most part. But like real life is grim and dark enough anymore. So in my fantasy make believe world, I want knights in shining armor. I want someone to pull the sword from the stone and get save the kingdom.
Yeah, I totally get it, totally understand. So how about you guys and gals out there in the chat? Is do you kind of see along the same lines? Do you play as heroes, or do you want heroes if you're the DM? You know, Let us know. Sound out.
Yeah, I think it's okay when you play a game and maybe like one of your players is secretly an evil character, and the rest of the players don't know. So like they're doing small incremental things where maybe they're working against the party or towards their own ends, but it's nothing overt and it's not like disrupting the party.
Yeah, you're not. They're not looking for out and out villainy. In my last game, the Curse on Archdus, Ryan's character was a rogue from the very beginning. He's like, hey, I want to do this whole thiefy, underhanded thing, blah 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 blah. And as the game went on, and other things happened to come out, and it's like, wow, there's some dark elements here. I wound up becoming, or he winds up becoming an element in the leadership, and he's like, I really don't need to do the underhanded thing. I want to turn this whole thieving organization on its head and turn them into like the protectors of the town that are like unknown. And it's like, wow, that was really cool. And it was a minor thing, but it was an awesome transitional, thing for, a pseudo shady character. I
Yeah,
don't want to.
well, that was a great arc, and that's a good point because, all right, so of the party, maybe his character was maybe one of the least heroic. It was more interested in material gain and wealth, but as things were going on, though he wasn't concerned with others so much, and he was kind of a little bit selfish, but at the same time, he wasn't like a murder hobo. He didn't just want to like do harm for harm's sake. He just wanted more for his character.
Right.
And the character wanted more for themselves. But when the character was confronted with like the face of true evil, where horrific things are happening and things are really, really bad, that I think that was like the turning point. And he even had some like bad things happen to his character, getting kidnapped and impersonated. Maybe a little bit of torture was involved. There was a lot of blood sacrifices going on. So, at that point, he decided to side with humanity over, demons. that was the straw too much.
And that's always something that like, I didn't really do a whole lot of conversational stuff with the players out of game. They were like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing here, or, hey, you didn't make it for a session or two, well, let's just see what happens here. And I had a little bit of fun with it. Nobody really approached me and said, hey, I'm not really happy with this. Everybody seemed to really enjoy the game, and over the 48 50 sessions, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think we had a blast. We had a really great game.
So anybody in the chat, if you have questions, just put a question in front of it, or GM911, or tag us in it, so it's real easy for us to pick out. But Matt Land, what do you do when those players that refuse the call?
Well, if they're being evil, and they're not seeing that hey, good is
Well,
not
they didn't say
prevailing
anything
here.
about being evil. They just said they just refused. The players just refused the call, so they're not taking the hook.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. They're not taking the hook. Well, I mean, time has to progress. If you present a story option, a hook option, and the players don't take it, okay, well, one of two things happens. Either that person gets rescued by somebody else, and we've talked about this before, and you shower the other NPCs with, hey, you rescued, here, lavish gifts. Let me, let me put you up and, give you this building, and probably go above and beyond what you might have done to the PCs to be like, hey, here's the rewards you got for doing this. Or you've got the other story of like, the town or the city is like dismal because no one went and did it, and the if you want to really go dark and gruesome, like the head was returned. It's like, look, you refused to pay the ransom, blah 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 blah. Here's your present, and you know,
I think like a big part of it is just like figuring out, what are the buttons you need to push on your characters. And also too, like I guess this is it, that is a point where you can lean in and go, well, what is their alignment? If they don't want to do the good deed and they're technically adventurers, they're probably the most capable people in town that are going to do it. I mean, you could even like do like depending what it is, like okay, bandits are attacking. Hey, do you guys want this job? You seem capable. Nah, we're busy. We're drinking in the tavern and it's comfy. All right, let's send the B squad. And and you can do it one of two ways. One is the B squad never comes back, or like you said, the only their heads come back, and it's like, well, they're all dead, and you might be somewhat responsible because you could have, depending on how they feel about it, they might not care. You could have gone and in their stead and maybe been successful, or the other thing is kind of like what you said is they go and they are successful and they get the rewards and they get lavished with gems and jewels and companionship and whatever it is the players would want. That comfy tavern that they love so much. Those people now get put up there for free whenever they're in town, and their drinks they never pay for them again. Or it's something. A lot of times it's just figuring out what the players' buttons are and pushing them.
I've got another option that just occurred to me. Is you turn the kidnapped person into the villain. They have been, through dark magic, through persuasion, what have you, they've now become the villain, and they have been turned against the town. So you bring the battle to the town. It might not be, the next day, it might be, a week, a month, a year, what have you, but eventually, that person has been, demonified or aberrationified or just infused with dark magic and dark energy, and everything that they used to love is now what they hate, and they're coming to destroy the town.
All right, so we got a couple questions here. Brad Smith, any ideas how to build up a Dugar raiding party captain as a low-level bad guy in 2 to 3 session stretch? I guess part of that is if you want to build them up and have the players hate him, he's got to be or her. He's got to be somewhat successful. So you got to give them some wins and have some things going on in order for them to really have an impact and for your players to really not like them.
So you've got the ability to number one, depending upon where they're raiding, they're Duragar, are they raiding a mine shaft, or are they raiding from a nearby mountain into a town? That if you've got a reoccurring villain, number one is important is they've got to have a way to get away if the party encounters them. If you want that that repeat occurrence, but you've got the ability to, for anything that the PCs are not directly involved with, it's not something that you roll. You narrate what has happened. Whether the lone survivor comes back to talk about this horrific story, or like you've got to, beat down the players. If they're going to be involved, you've got to have it so that they're stronger than the PCs, and you've got to basically beat them to a point where it looks like you're going to TPK them, and then walk away. Like let them recover, let them take care of the stuff. But the bad guys, are able to get away while they're taking care of the wounded.
Well, I think one of the best ways is not having them there as well.
Yes, that is the perfect way, because then the NPCs get to dictate exactly what happens and how bad and how horrific this was without the
Like,
PCs.
it would be kind of cool if this captain outmaneuvers the players a couple times in the idea that they decide to go after something that's happening and they face off Dugar Raiders. They defeat them. But maybe they don't all die. Maybe they get a prisoner or two. And then that's when they learn, oh, this was actually just a ploy to, to distract them. And the real objective is going on right now somewhere else and being completed. So that they can get angry because like they kind of failed. And this guy is kind of getting the W. And if you do that a couple times and then let them finally face against them, then they'll be, you'll have riled them up sufficiently, I believe.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea, and you don't have to decide, where the captain's going to go. You just decide, okay, you give the players two or three choices, preferably two, and wherever they go, or wherever they don't go, is where he attacks.
Yeah, I know some DMs and maybe even players hate that kind of gaming, the Schrodinger's encounter, but to me, like nothing has actually happened until it's happened, and I'm totally
Right.
fine. And I'm totally fine with that for the narrative, and creating a story that's going to be compelling and fun. And sometimes, like as a DM, it's the only tool you really have is hindsight's 2020 that you can use, because sometimes your players just come up with really clever stuff. Now, I wouldn't just do it to take it away from them, but if you kind of have something planned, the easiest way to execute it is to not have the players involved,
Right.
because once you add that element of chaos into the mix, all bets are off. And it keeps you from having to do other things like fudging dice or changing things on the fly, like, oh, now he has 100 more hit points or whatever. Like, you don't have to do these mechanically like cheatery kind of things if you just not have them there, and they have something else happen. If all your cheatery things are narratively and not mechanically, I feel like that's a better way to go.
And it's another way of you know essentially outwitting. Like if the NPC in question is honestly more intelligent, is more cunning, more wise, call it what you will, than what the players are or what they would expect. Like that's how you deal with it. You don't say, okay, well, I think it's going to be X, so I'll put them there and they're going to go to Y. Great. Well, what if they go to Y and they foul up your plan?
Well, also too, like a lot of times when you're trying to develop a character like that, like that particular character, there's a possibility they're smarter than you,
And
the person running the game, but you can't role play being smarter than you actually are. It is literally impossible. But what you can do is take these narrative elements that you have control over and manipulate them so that that person is then perceived as being more intelligent or wiser or whatever.
that's kind of the direction I was going with it. When this person is more adept than the person sitting behind the GM screen, that's a way that you can handle it.
So I mean, it's another reason why as a role player I prefer to play down mental stats than up them, right? Because it's so much easier, which to me is also more fun to do it that way. Ansu has a totally different question. He didn't put question in front of it, but I did notice it anyway, so I'll grab it. I noticed in a couple of the past videos you talked about multi-classing the druid. From what I remember, druids are unable to use metal weapons, armor. Does that hinder most builds? They can use any weapons. They may not be proficient in them. They do have metal armor restrictions. There's people that will argue, and I think it's kind of a douchey argument, and I'm annoyed with Watts too over it, because they just didn't say they can't use it. Because everyone's like, oh, it doesn't say they can't. It says they won't use it, not that they can't. And it's like, no, won't means can't. I think I remember one of my like first grade teachers saying that. But Wizards of the Coast should have just drew the line, but like, no, none of their shit will work if you put metal armor on. F you. and made it really simple, because then you have to deal with the rules lawyers that want to argue that point. But even when the designers are asked, they all say the same thing over and over again, and it would have just simplified it if they would have just changed the language, so we don't even have to have this argument.
Right. I mean, there's other third-party products and stuff that's out there that allow you to get some medium armors and maybe some heavy armors that are made out of non-metal materials.
Dragon scale, you can wear a dragon scale.
Well, but I mean beyond dragon scale.
Yeah.
And there are some other options that are out there. When I was at Gen Con, what is it? Xanathar's Extraordinary Vault. It's up on a DMG. I know there's some options in there for some non-metal armors. If you're looking to spruce up your druid a little bit.
But that being said, I don't think it really hinders the builds at all. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? That's the real question.
Right.
It's not about whether adding a druid that can't wear metal armor into the mix is going to hinder the build or not. It's about, what are you trying to build?
Right.
If you're trying to build something that you feel needs metal armor,
don't be a druid.
Don't be a druid. Be a nature priest. They get heavy armor proficiency.
They do with that.
So to me, non-issue. It's just and objectively, when we do our builds and we use a druid, we don't have any intention of putting metal armor on them. We're doing it for different reasons.
Right. So we do have a question from the elder god Cthulhu, the Great and Powerful. So question: my changeling has two personalities. How should I switch between them from Black Dragonborn Barbarian to Human Sorcerer?
Simple.
So,
I would just make up traits for both of them and try and roleplay them.
So I think he's looking for triggers, like what's going to cause them to switch back and forth. And I would just figure that out. Like, if something makes you angry, like that should totally bring out your Dragonborn. Now I don't know whether you're actually making two separate characters and it's a changeling that just switches back and forth from two different character sheets. I think that could be Owl, or whether you've got one character who's both barbarian and sorcerer and you just kind of like look different, but you're still building it up. That kind of hurt my head a little bit on that one.
And, changelings don't really work that way anyway. I mean, usually they have multiple identities and they kind of change them like a person would change clothes, but it's not a trigger thing. It's just like it's a tool for them. It's like, who do I need to be today? Like, or it's Tuesday and Black Dragonborn Barbarian does this certain thing on Tuesday, so I have to go do that thing because that's just what I do on Tuesdays.
So I mean, maybe he is doing it as a personality thing, but as Dave says, by raw, it's not a trigger, it's not a switch. So it's kind of going to be whatever you feel and however you want to work it out with your GM.
But regardless, even playing a regular changeling, they almost like method actors. They become, some of them, not all of them, become that particular person, that personality to develop. So really, literally, you would just develop multiple characters, and when you're in that personality, that's the character you play. So you might just be overthinking it. Just think about having multiple characters and like, whatever guise you're in, that's the one you're going to do.
Yeah, I do remember the book when he gets back to the end. He gets back to his room at the inn at the end, and he switches from whatever it was, and it's like, man, I really like playing blah. I should do that more often.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that was so cool.
And then, I know what you're talking about. That book was a great ending too. So Clem Hermans, what is your balance of combat RP in a campaign? I think it kind of switches, right, from session to session for us. I don't know that we have a particular one. I mean, for us, generally, we're going to play, especially in our in-person games, we are going to play from 3 hours to 4 or 5, with three kind of being like the average. 5 would be super rare, but 4 does happen sometimes. And in that evening, generally, we're going to have 1 or 2 combats. But occasionally, someone will do something like build a tower with 5 levels on it, and every one of those levels is
Four levels.
is an encounter. 7 levels. Correct me again. I'm just going to keep adding levels. No, so like I don't think we have a standard per se, but we tend to do less combat counters, but which really messes our players up because they're used to just being able to Nova all their abilities, and then we're like, all right, I feel like I'm going to do 3 tonight, and they're like, oh, but I used everything on my on the first encounter. Sucks to be you, buddy.
So that is the thing, I like to try and keep my players on their toes. And if you do go into a session saying, okay, Ted usually does 1 combat a session, no big deal. You get in that first fight, haha, and I unload, and you climb the stairs, and oh shit, there's more fight. Dear God, I'm out of hit points, I'm out of spells. What do I do?
I just came across Doug's comment. It says "will not wear," meaning if you're a druid, you just will not. That argument makes me want to stab people. It makes me really angry. I don't know why. It's definitely a hot button for me. Do not argue about that with me in person. Just saying. The barbarian will come out. But no, I'm a really peaceful and kind person.
Yeah, really. But honestly, like I try to make sure that I throw out at least 1 combat and at least something that you have the option to role play with, should you so desire. I don't force anything. I give the players, carte blanche. I was really hoping that they ended the previous session saying we're going to the Wizard's Tower, that they'd actually stick to that plan and go to the Wizard's Tower, because had they not, the entire session would have just been, all right, Ted's pulling stuff out of his arse because he planned nothing but.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that you're like, what are you guys doing next session? So I know what to plan. And we tell you exactly what we're going to do, and then we do something completely different.
You're not wrong there, sir. But, you keep me on my toes, and that's one of the things that I like about gaming with, this awesome group of people that they're all veterans that have got more than a decade of experience at chucking funny shaped dice and talking in funny voices. And sometimes it's gonna happen. You're gonna go in a direction that I was not prepared for, and we're just gonna see how things plan out.
Taurus at Nerdarchy question. That's very good. So you did both. You at Nerdarchy us and question. So like we could pick that out real easy. Good job, Taurus. You're the man. Or woman, as the case may be. Taurus is kind of unisex. So we got, what are some good situations to test players' heroism? For example, saving an NPC from a Warforged task to make money from cities.
So, you could do the simple of like, are you going to go rescue somebody? Going one step further is, all right, are they willing to put themselves at risk to save a person? Are they willing to take damage? Are they willing to like, hey, I'm going to, jump off a cliff and throw a rope? And, we both might die, but we both might live. Like, those are the heroic things that you see in movies. Like, that's the kind of stuff that, I like as potential options.
Yeah, some of it is, will you take an arrow for this person that is, helpless or defenseless? I think, other situations would be where there is a NPC of authority over the players, and they ask them to do something that is morally questionable, and they have to make the tough decision to do something like follow orders or do the right thing. So things like that could definitely fall into that category. There would be good situations to test the players and see what they're willing to do, or if they're tasked with recovering treasure for a particular merchant, baron, king, whatever. But one of those pieces of treasure is something that one of the players would really want. Yeah, you can tempt them with things like that. Do they do the right thing and return the property that's not theirs, and maybe they're even being paid to retrieve, or do they keep it?
Yeah, there's there's always the challenge of being the proper hero in the mini terrain domain game. It's fairly early on, but we came upon dwarven tombs, and what it's wrong to rob the dead and what have you, and the treasure hunter that is the pair of dwarves that we have, and the greedy PC that is played by yours truly, because I love getting loot. I really had to struggle with the no, you don't rob graves, especially when it's your own people. So it was really a struggle to nope, I'm gonna walk away from this one because I know there's something good that's been buried in there. Because there were three giant sarcophagi with all of this immaculate carving and runic lettering, and I'm like, ah.
Hey, I'm just saying, if you can't rob the graves of your people, who can? Whose graves can you really rob? Now, another example too is like this was actually put up forth not by the DM in your game, but one of the players, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to this really potentially dangerous thing. Who wants a clone?" Right? And everybody in the party took one, but my character. My
Right.
character said, "Nah." Like I said no because I didn't think that was something my character would do. He wouldn't believe in that. Instead, he just got married and tried to knock up his wife and be like, "Well, if I don't make it back, maybe I'll have some spawn to carry on the name or something." So, but I mean, it could be anything. Sometimes it's just small things that you put out there and see if your heroes rise to the challenge. Things that are inconvenient, right? Like an NPC that just asks them to do a kind of mundane task, but they need help. Whether it's like, hey, could you cut this cord of wood, or could you take my groceries in, or some things like that, to kind of get a gauge and create these like role playing situations that maybe your players will be into, maybe they won't. And the chat jumped. How dare you?
So
So
Kineda wants to run a game for us. Yeah, it's not really
okay,
a
that's not
question,
really a question.
but it's a statement, and he tagged us, so it's out there.
Life goals. Well, I mean, that's a fairly easy one for you to unlock. I'm thinking we could
Uh,
probably make. I'm pretty sure we can make that one happen.
so deplorable Mechacoptera says it's not grave robbing, it's archaeology.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, only if you put it in a museum or something, though, right? Otherwise, you're just a d bag. Um,
And we do have one that just came in from Clem Hermans. One more question: what is a good way to handle a character's dead in a campaign where everyone is extremely bonded to his or her character? Happened in my campaign a few days ago.
hold awake in real life. If your group is drinkers, why not? Hold awake. Everyone gets dressed up as their character, except for the guy that died. He's just got to lay there on the table the whole session, dressed up as his character, dead.
No, that person should be the
Oh no, they
you
weekend
know
at
the,
Bernie's him.
oh.
Bam.
I was gonna say they should be like the tavern keeper or the barkeep, or they're the one that's got to serve the drinks.
The spouse. They have to play the distraught spouse. All right, so that's one goofy answer. Maybe we should give a real one too.
So, I mean, legitimately, I honestly think in game, you should have something that, like, if everyone is really super bonded, like the death should mean something. And if it was something where like they died in a like non meaningful combat, and it's just like you could do a seance, you could do an actual a session where you're gonna do the funeral, and have everyone have their final words, the last messages to say to said deceased character.
So, Joshua Donaldson has a question. What kind of thing would you do to make self sacrifice a viable option in the face of a clockwork plague? So I don't think the actual mechanism matters that much, like whether it's a clockwork plague, a regular plague, or just a scenario, as far as making self-sacrifice viable. One, it should be like I don't think as a DM you should ever plan that. I have, uh, but there is extenuating circumstances.
Right.
But in normal play, that should not be a thing. But if your party is having a hard time and is going badly, and someone comes up with a plan to sacrifice one of the members of the party, preferably themselves and not someone else, because I think that's just sacrifice. That's not self-sacrifice. Completely different. Then as the DM, I would try and figure out how to make that work and make that not only work, but do something really beneficial to the rest of the party. Whether it's them get away and, with something of value or valuable information, or it kind of like saves the day, like to really try and make it meaningful. Like the one that happened in my game was one of the players was leaving, so they weren't going to play anymore. I'm like, well, how do you want to do this? You want to retire? You want to go out in a blaze of glory? You want to become a villain? Maybe a couple of those things. Sure, why not? Yeah, we'll make that happen. So he kind of had a last stand and held the bridge while everyone else was trying to escape.
He got the Hodor up.
Yeah, pretty much. But but for the most part, I would say like I wouldn't plan that.
Yeah, that's something that like you only plan it if legitimately a character is leaving the group or a player is leaving the group, and you've had a chance to as you did, have a conversation with them and say, hey, how do you want this to happen? In Alan's case, it was a scenario of like he was moving. There wasn't a chance for him to continue as that character. He wasn't going to be able to game next week, so it was a hey, how do you want to do this? And you went down the list with him, and he chose what he chose.
So it looks like Drew Syndicate Art Dials is in the chat, also known as the artist formerly known as Nerdarchist Ryan. What's up, brother? Jack of the Dead. What method have you used to keep the party moving and not taking a short rest? Attack them. Just throw monsters at them.
I mean, when you've got, you've got, whether it be a dungeon or a wizard's tower, and they're like, hey, I'm going to short rest. All right, well, before your hour is up, this happens. You don't really get to finish your rest because you're now in combat.
It kind of came up in our last game.
It did.
Because we actually, we went through a lot of resources really fast. But, at the same time, people are like, I can't believe you're just gonna Leroy Jenkins' tower. Because I totally did that. But I'm like, it doesn't really make sense for us to, camp out level to level. Until the very end when it did make a little bit more sense because of reasons. But for the most part, that stuff doesn't make sense to me. So as a player, I will Leroy Jenkins because I'm like, why would I camp out in my enemy stronghold? They're not going to notice. They're like, I haven't seen Bob for a while. Wasn't he on guard duty or something?
So yeah, and in those situations, it is a little bit harder. And I didn't present you with ways to make it easy. And don't get me wrong, the last rest that you guys got, it was a gimme. I was battering you pretty hard, and I knew that there was a pretty significant fight coming. And had I not allowed you guys to rest, it might have gone pretty bad. So
respect that. I also would have been fine if we just had to fight him. Figure it out. We had this. We don't do that too often. I mean, worst case scenario is some characters die, we make up some new ones.
Josh, who wasn't there, I had talked to him, earlier in the day, and I don't remember exactly where he said he had heard it, but he had said, look, if the character dies, the character dies. I heard an interesting, statement, and it's not. I'm not into the character. I'm into the game.
Mm.
Something along those lines. So he's like, yeah, you know what? The overarching story is more important than what my PC is. If I die, I roll up a new one and I'm back in the story, without too much effort.
Michael Springer. I have all new player table, and they will not make decisions and only interact with things that interact with them. They never ask about rumors in town, for example. Any tips? If you know what, if they feel comfortable with that scenario, I wouldn't worry about it. If it's not a problem for them, then it probably isn't a problem. You want them to have rumors in the town? Have them overhear someone talking about rumors in the town. If you want them to make a decision, present them with two doors. You have to pick one or just stay here. Um, I don't think. I think it's. I hear people say this, and I think it's less of an issue. Just keep interacting with them. Eventually, what will happen too is if you interact with them enough, they'll start to pick things that they like, and I think you'll find they'll go back to them. Like as long as those things are kind of options for them to go back to later in a game, then I think at some point something's going to click. Whether it's that dwarven blacksmith they go to, or the old man that always has a crazy story, or the old woman that swears she's a witch. Maybe she is, maybe she's not. Maybe it really is just her laundry in that cauldron in her backyard that she's stirring all the time. Who knows? But just keep introducing interesting things, and eventually, I think something will stick. Spaghetti against the wall.
And that whole idea of introducing an NPC, when you find something or someone that they're willing to go back to, like find out what it is about that is drawing them in. Is it the voice? Is it the demeanor? What is it about that makes them keep coming back? And try to see if you can replicate that in another way. Can you get them to, hey, go interact with this person? When they interact more with people, make those characters more meaningful and attached to the story. You can you use that as building blocks to build your DM repertoire and what it is that your players want out of the game.
So Brian Smith wants to know any suggestions for cool Earth-based creatures that might make a good non-combat encounter underground.
Earth-based creatures.
Wouldn't that just be like a miner?
I mean, it could be a minor. I mean, you've got dwarves and gnomes. They're pseudo Earth-based. You've got Earth Genasi. You're gonna have an Earth Genasi that's commingled with dwarf or gnome or both.
Oh, see, my brain went to the planet Earth and not the element, the element of Earth. I mean, with that, that opens up all kinds of things: Zorns and Earth elementals.
But he wanted easily to role play, and I don't think Zorn are really open to role playing. And Earth elementals, like I believe by role they understand Terran, but I don't know if they speak. Depends upon where they are in the elemental chain.
Let me tell you, Ted, I do what I want to do, and if I want my Earth elemental to talk and understand, he does.
Well, I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm completely 100% on board with that.
What if you introduced the Zorn? First of all, was it the Temple of Jing? They had Zorn poker, okay? Instead of dogs playing poker, they had Zorns playing poker. So don't you tell me, son. You can do all kinds of crazy things. But what if you introduced a Zorn, right? They have an 11 intelligence. They have a language. They speak Terran, but there's no reason why they couldn't speak more than one language. And what if he's a merchant? What if he sells stuff, but he only accepts gems as payment, right? You could have a long discussion with him and role-playing scene with him because maybe he has things that the players want, but they can't afford it. Not because they don't have enough money or gold, but because they don't have gems, and he only cares about gems. It could be a whole thing, and they could try and haggle and try and figure out how to make the transaction or the deal to happen. But I don't know. That just right off the top of my head, that's one of the things that comes to mind. Let's see, what kind of tags do I got to work with here in my
all right.
D&D
Well, while you're looking that up, I mean, you can also take a nod out of the Drizzt trilogy where there was a polymorphed hook horror. I forget exactly what he was beforehand, but Clacker was a good guy essentially, and so you could role play with something that's not standardly a role play thing and have fun with it.
He was a peck,
It was a pack. There you go.
in case anyone was wondering. Don't ask me why I know this.
Well, I'm happy that you remembered, because it's been a really long time since I read those books.
Yeah, because he kept tapping, because pecks were like minors, and they, so he kept. He always wanted to. He kept tapping, and yeah, that was like that's a cool story, and there are there's tons of things like that you could do, but it's really important you put a hat on them so they know to interact with them.
My God, why is that hook horror wearing a fedora?
Right? Why not introduce a gargoyle NPC into it? Why not a mud or dust method? Why not introduce those into the game? There's no everything has a potential of being a combat encounter, right? With the right players, everything's a viable target. But the question is, what if they're underground and you introduce, a gang of methods, right? And maybe they're not interested in. Maybe it's comical, right? They're trying to mug them, but they're looking at them, and it's hard to take them serious. And me personally, I would put them in all kinds of little clothes and outfits and dress them up in little gangsters or something, but. Do something to make them different, and just have them interact with the party, and then the party will tell you whether this is a combat encounter or not. But the option's always there. So I see a bunch more questions.
All right, so Taurus says, I have an NPC that owns a shop that sells weird magic items. However, I know this guy is going to be a hit with my players. Should I make him a traveling salesman or a stay-at-home? So it depends upon what exactly you want this guy to be.
Both. Both.
If the items are questionable, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Traveling is going to be awesome. I love the idea of the weird guy selling the weird stuff. That's limited time. You got to get it now because I'm moving on tomorrow.
Like Ryan's crazy Jamal.
Oh God, I love him.
Yeah, these deals are crazy.
Yeah. So when you do that kind of stuff, it puts the pressure on. There is no tomorrow with this deal. You've got to buy today. So there's that pressure angle, which is fun. And then you can literally pop him up wherever. Should the players need you want to insert a role playing scene. But hey, you're in the wilderness. Well, hey, look, crazy Jamal's wagon just happens to be, riding by, opposite direction, same direction, whatever you want to do. And now you've got a chance to role play with this guy. You've got a chance to deal with the squabbles, if there are any, see what he's got to buy today. It's a lot of fun that can be done there.
So my other idea is with that, if you go with the stay at home, how fun would it be if they have a base of operations they usually use, but they, for whatever reason, they're someplace else and they run into this person because they had to go there to pick something up or deliver something or whatever reason you come up with, or maybe even they become an adventure hook because now they have a problem and they're here. But I know these guys. Maybe you can help me out. So I think there's a lot of fun things that you could do with that with either situation. It just depends on. Whether you want to have I think the base question is, do your players have a base of operations themselves? Do they have a place that they're always coming back to? Because if they don't, then a stay-at-home guy or gal is irrelevant, right? Because they're probably not gonna go back there, or they're not gonna go back there frequently. So traveling makes more sense because you can kind of show up at different places. But if they have a place that they're always going back to, then I feel like the other option is actually a better option. So it depends on your game.
Perfect scenario. They're, brothers, sisters,
clones.
Brother and sister clones, simulacrum, whatever you want to call them. But you've got both. You've got one dude who goes out and wanders and finds new things and finds new trades, and you've got one dude that's always back at home, holding down the fort, but like they refuse to be in the same place in public.
Oh,
So that
even better would be one of them is shady as F, and the other one is honest as can be. But they never like you never know which is which that you're dealing with. Maybe they are twins, or maybe they just look alike, or whatever, and have similar mannerisms, except for the fact that one is like super honest, and the other is not. Andy, are you guys going to still be in the UK next week, barring any natural disasters, planes crashing, plane getting hit by a meteor, or us being abducted by aliens? Yes, we leave Friday, and Doug leaves a couple of days after that.
Less than 72 hours, Dave and I will be on a plane.
Yes. And then we have characters. I cannot read that. I'm starting into Adventures League. Any tips for how to make a ice themed sorcerer? Also, what is the starting generation system for AL? AL is PHP +1. You generally start at level 1. I would think if you were to do maybe like a water genasi, but then that would be your +1 from the, not the Sword Coast Adventures guide, no, from the Elemental Evil Player's Companion. Right. Or any race. There isn't really any like cold themed races per se.
But, I mean, you could go Dragonborn.
Oh, Dragonborn, White Dragon, and you could go Draconic Sorcerer and theme it White Dragon as well. And then it's just a matter of taking elemental spells.
You could go. I think one of the Tieflings is pseudo ice related.
Yes,
as well. So like that's an option. Both Dragonborn and Tiefling are charisma based. So
that being said, though, if you're playing Adventures League and you're going to be a spellcaster, you absolutely want to pick a race out of the player's handbook. So I would go Dragonborn. If you're like really like hardcore set on that, or one of the other races that are in the player's handbook that are charisma based, because if you want to get access to all of the spells or nearly all of the spells, you want Xanathar's Guide to Everything to be your +1. This I know, because we always get yelled at because when we make our Adventure League legal characters, we don't always pay attention to where the spells are coming from necessarily.
Nobody's perfect.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we're down to less than 10 minutes. So I want to give a shout out to any of the fans out there that might be interested in the world of Revelo. Creature Curations has got their Kickstarter going right now for the world of Revelo. It's down in the Kickstarter section in the description. It's definitely a awesome campaign setting. I've had the pleasure to actually run a game set in it. The artwork is amazing. The development of the different races, they're all unique and really a lot of fun. And if you back today in that first 24 hours of the campaign and get a physical reward, you will actually get a free set of Creature Curation, polyhedral dice. So definitely worthwhile to get into today. He's hoping to get to 50% funded in that first 24 hours, and he's on track to make that happen without a problem. So
there's a description in the link. There's a, in the description there's a link. Not in the link. There's a description. Yeah, go use the link in the description. That will also let them know that we sent you. Yeah, or you can just tell them, just email them, message them on social media, everywhere, all the places, and be like, Nerdarchy sent us.
But he is, his stuff is great. The cover art on that stuff, I am kind of drooling over. I've had access to the preview page for a while, so I was looking forward to when they announced, like, okay, when's it gonna happen? So I personally, I was backer number 3 this morning.
Someone beat you to number 1, huh?
Yeah, I realized that I was watching it on Discord, which is on my PC, and my laptop was actually where it is now. And so I had to, when they shared the link in Discord of like, it's live, I went to the watch page, and I'm like, no crap, this is the wrong one. I got to go over there and log in via the the Kickstarter on that, so it took time. And by the time I got there, I was number 3.
Son of a monkey's uncle.
It's okay. I
But
can deal with being number 3.
there are 31 days to go, 120 backers, 8,352. So they still need 1,648 to get that halfway mark in the first day.
So just
But
you know,
you can make it happen.
but 10 of you guys out there could go sign up right now for like the top tier, get all the stuff that's going to be there. You want to do it, and you can make it happen right now, and you'd get to, we'd get there, or he'd get there.
What is the top tier? Is it like $1 million?
No, it's 175. You're getting both.
That's not bad.
You're getting both books. You're getting a GM screen. You're getting a slipcase. You're getting the dice. You're getting the coins. You're getting the decks of cards. You're getting the both boxes of pawns. It's a really good deal for what you're getting.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Well, you get the book, the campaign book, the bestiary book, 2 decks for Revelo monster cards, like you said, 2 boxes of bestiary box monster pawns, GM screen, slipcase, maps, coins, and also you get the PDF deluxe print and play, and the resin polyhedral Revelo dice.
So you'll get the blue dice, I believe, through that. But if you back in that first 24 hours, you will also get, if you get, you'll get the green dice. You'll wind up with an extra set of dice.
Nerdarchy, formerly Nerdarchist Ryan, has a suggestion in order to fix your backer numbers. If you just kill off the 2 before you could be number 1.
I don't feel the need to.
Nerdarchy does not condone murder for the sake of bragging rights or any other reason. Although maybe if you argue that a druid can wear metal armor, just maybe it might be justified. Just saying.
I really don't think that there's a whole lot of situation where murder is the go-to answer.
Outside of that whole druid thing. Stab you.
So RPG free RPG day was this past Saturday. So I hope you guys happen to check your local flags and get access to some cool stuff. My daughter was super happy when I brought home Dungeons and Doggies by Steamforged Games. She's excited to get into that.
Cool. Are you going to be? So you're going to be running it
at some point in time? Obviously, after.
Oh, maybe you can trick your son into running it.
No, I mean, actually, it is probably easier to get my daughter to run than it is to get him. He's really pushing back.
She's bossy.
She is. Love her.
There's worse things to be.
I love her, but yeah, she is.
It's good. I like a woman that knows what she wants. That's why she's my favorite niece.
Could be that she's your only niece, but
Hey, semantics. Hey, if someone
semantic. It's been a long day, apparently.
Yeah, it's been a day for sure. What are you gonna do? Oh, we're winding down. I don't know if there's any final announcement. Oh, we should tell people the thing.
Yes, our Kickstarter, speaking of Kickstarters, we had made mention that we were looking at July 8th. We're actually going to push that back a week because Dave will have only, just gotten home from the castle. So we are looking at July 15th as our launch date for out-of-the-box encounters. We are super excited to make this happen. We have been, working like crazy behind the scenes to try and, get this, going. We're working on the preview page now that we might be able to, share out or tease out at some point in time before that launch.
Yeah, if we figure out how to screen share things on OBS. I mean, it's one tutorial away from us knowing how to do it, but it seems like a lot of effort.
I mean, we've got a lot going on, so it's been a little bit difficult to make happen.
That wasn't even the thing I was talking about.
Oh, what are you talking about?
I was just gonna say we're not gonna be here next week or the week after.
That is, certainly an important to make mention, since we are getting on a plane in a few short days, and we'll be spending a week at one castle, and then I come home, and then you'll be spending a week at the second castle. That we're not going to be doing this thing for the next couple of weeks. So your Tuesdays at this particular time frame are going to be free for you to go read those Nerdarchy PDFs that you've already gotten, and check out your favorite Nerdarchy videos that you haven't had a chance to watch yet, or that you've watched over and over again. That's a great time to get into that, or go do some other RPG related thing.
Absolutely. So, with that, until next time, stay
Stay nerdy.